My ex used me to pay for her rent while she slept with someone else. Then I ghosted her and took back everything she owed. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and for as long as I can remember, I believe that taking care of the person you love is the purest form of loyalty. Maybe it's because I grew up watching my dad work himself to the bone for my mom. Maybe it's because I always thought love was supposed to be a place where you give without keeping score. Whatever the reason, that belief shaped every decision I made when I met Jenna. I met her at a time when she was spiraling financially after losing her job. She looked overwhelmed the day she told me, her shoulders shaking as she whispered, "I don't know how I'm going to stay afloat." Something in me snapped into protector mode. I kept telling her, "It's okay, I've got you. You'll bounce back." At first, it was small things, buying her groceries, covering her phone bill, helping with gas. She always looked at me with these grateful eyes, like I had saved her from drowning. And honestly, it felt good. It made me feel needed in a way no other relationship ever had. When she would say, "You're the only stable person in my life," I'd feel this warm rush in my chest. I thought I was finally building something real, something solid. My friends didn't see it the way I did. One night, while grabbing burgers after work, my buddy Mark leaned back in his chair and said, "Man, you're doing a lot for someone who's not doing much for you." I laughed him off and said she was just having a rough stretch. I genuinely believed she'd get back on her feet and things would balance out. But I didn't realize I was stepping onto a slope so steep I wouldn't notice the fall until I hit the ground. At the time, I thought I was choosing love. I didn't know I was choosing to walk straight into manipulation I wasn't prepared to face. I wish I could say things stabilized after that, but they didn't. Instead, my help slowly became the default, not because I offered, but because Jenna started expecting it in ways I didn't immediately recognize. It began subtly. One morning she sighed and said, "Rent's coming up. I'm still waiting to hear back from that interview." I remember telling her, "Don't worry, I'll cover it this month." I meant it as a one-time thing. But 1 month quietly became 2, then 3. Soon I was paying for everything: rent, groceries, utilities, even random expenses she'd forgotten about. Every time I tried to talk about budgeting or splitting costs, Jenna would look wounded and say things like, "I already feel guilty enough. I hate that you're acting like I'm a burden." That sentence was a knife every time. I'd backpedal immediately, telling her she wasn't a burden, that things would get better. Looking back, I realized guilt was her weapon, and I didn't even see the blade. The worst part? She wasn't struggling the way she claimed. She always had money to go out with friends, brunches, movie nights, drinking plans. She'd come home smelling like perfume and laughter, dropping her purse on the couch like she hadn't just spent the day ignoring responsibilities. I'd be exhausted from back-to-back shifts, and she'd casually say, "Can we do takeout tonight? I'm not in the mood to cook." And I'd order it without thinking because I didn't want to start a fight. My friend saw what I refused to. One day, my friend Tyler muttered, "She's draining you, man." And I snapped back, "No, she's just catching a break." But even as I said it, something in me felt uneasy, like I was patching over cracks that were getting wider every day. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that she'd repay the kindness someday. But deep down, I didn't realize I was already sinking under the weight of a financial responsibility she had no intention of sharing. The thing about red flags is that they never show up as giant warning signs. They show up as tiny moments that feel off. But you convince yourself they're nothing. That's exactly how it was with Jenna. At first, it was her shifting energy. She'd stop sitting next to me on the couch, choosing the far end. She'd say, "I'm just tired." But somehow she always had energy for her friends. Then came the changes in her appearance. Jenna suddenly started getting dressed up more. Full makeup, perfume strong enough to cling to the hallway even after she'd left, outfits she hadn't worn in months. Every time I asked where she was going, she'd say, "Just out with the girls, don't be weird." Her tone always made me feel like I was the insecure one, and I hated that. I hated that I felt uneasy in my own relationship. Her phone became the biggest red flag of all. She started sleeping with it under her pillow, screen turned away from me, always on silent. If a notification popped up, she'd snatch it so fast it looked like muscle memory. Once, I said jokingly, "You guarding state secrets or something?" She didn't laugh. She just muttered, "Privacy matters, you know." I remember staring at her, feeling this cold heaviness settle in my chest. But I kept excusing it all. I told myself she'd been through stress, that she needed space, that maybe I was being too sensitive because of how much work was piling on me. My coworkers teased me constantly, saying things like, "Bro, she's living the dream. You're basically her sponsor." I'd laugh it off, but I'd feel this sharp sting every time, like they were voicing something I wasn't ready to confront. Despite everything, I kept pushing down the discomfort. I kept choosing love over logic. But the truth was already creeping in, slowly and quietly, waiting for its moment to explode. The night everything truly shifted started with a simple sentence from Jenna. "I'm staying at a friend's tonight. I just need emotional space." She said it so casually, like it was the most normal thing in the world. But something in her tone felt rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in the mirror before walking out. I remember standing in the doorway, watching her rush down the stairs, her perfume lingering long after she disappeared from sight. Later that night, I walked past her desk and noticed an Uber receipt sticking out from under her notebook. It wasn't even hidden, just carelessly tossed aside. The destination wasn't anywhere near her friend's apartments. It was a neighborhood she had never once mentioned. My stomach clenched, and I felt this cold wave wash through me. I tried to brush it off, telling myself maybe she'd just forgotten to update me. But that uneasy voice in my head whispered, "She lied to you." The next day, I gently asked, "Hey, that wasn't the area your friend lives in, right?" Jenna's reaction was instant and explosive. She snapped, "Why are you tracking me? Are you seriously policing where I go now?" Her voice was sharp, defensive, almost angry enough to drown out the truth. I stumbled over my words, saying, "No, I was just worried," but she cut me off with a cold, "Then don't question me." The way she spoke to me left me feeling small, like I'd violated some boundary I didn't know existed. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying her reaction over and over. It didn't feel like guilt or stress. It felt like someone caught off guard, someone protecting a secret. I didn't confront her again, but I started watching more carefully, in silence, in stillness, just observing the cracks in her story that were slowly widening. I didn't realize it yet, but that Uber receipt was the first thread of a truth that would unravel my entire world. The truth didn't hit me gently. It crashed into my life like a brick. It happened on a random Thursday evening while I was at work, trying to finish a shift I was already too tired to get through. My phone buzzed, and when I checked it, I saw a picture from my friend Alex. No message, just the photo. Jenna, sitting at a restaurant I'd never been to, leaning across the table, holding another guy's hand. And worse, she was smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months. I froze. My heart fell so hard it felt like it hit the floor beneath me. I texted him, "Where is this?" And he replied instantly, "Downtown." She's with him. They look close. Close. That single word made my stomach twist. I left the photo open on my screen for a long minute, staring at her, at the version of herself she only showed him, not me. No stress, no exhaustion, no sadness, just pure lightness. I whispered to myself, "So that's where the energy went." My hands were shaking as I tried to breathe through the rush of disbelief and humiliation. When Jenna came home later that night, she acted completely normal. She kicked off her heels, tossed her purse on the couch, and said, "You're still awake? I missed you." I looked at her, and for the first time, I felt something inside me crack. She didn't even smell like the friend's house she claimed she went to. She smelled like a fancy restaurant, wine, and expensive cologne that wasn't mine. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I said softly, "Did you have a good night?" She smiled and said, "Yeah, just talked through some stuff with the girls." Lie. Clean, casual, practiced. I nodded and pretended everything was fine, but inside, a switch flipped. I wasn't looking for reassurance anymore. I was searching for the truth she had buried under months of manipulation. And deep down, I knew this was only the tip of something much darker. After seeing that photo, something inside me went cold. Not angry, not explosive, just cold. I moved through the next few days like a shadow, acting normal on the outside, while silently tracking everything Jenna did. If she noticed anything different about me, she didn't show it. Maybe because she was too busy juggling two lives. The first thing I checked was her bank app on our shared tablet. She'd logged into it a few weeks earlier and never signed out. I wasn't snooping before, but now? I needed answers. I scrolled through her transactions, and every doubt I had suddenly sharpened into certainty. The nights she claimed she was emotionally overwhelmed matched perfectly with her Uber rides to the same unfamiliar address. The money I gave her for groceries? Spent on cocktails and restaurants I'd never even heard of. I whispered to myself, "You've got to be kidding me." But deep down, I wasn't surprised. Not anymore. Then came the phone calls. Late at night, when she thought I was asleep, I'd hear her whispering from the bathroom. Her voice soft, playful, tones she hadn't used with me in months. One night I heard her say, "I wish I could stay longer, but he's home." "Yeah, I know. I'll see you tomorrow." He, not they, not the girls. He. When she came out, she glanced at me and said, "You're still awake?" I pretended to be half asleep and mumbled, "Just couldn't settle." She kissed my forehead, something she rarely did anymore, and said, "Try to rest, okay?" I felt her lips on my skin, and all I could think was how many lies those lips had told. Each day, the puzzle pieces slid into place. Every excuse, every mood swing, every girl's night suddenly made perfect sense. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't insecure. I was being played so deliberately it made my skin crawl. And with every new discovery, my silence got colder, and my resolve got stronger. I didn't think anything could hurt more than the photo, until I found the message that broke me completely. It was a Sunday afternoon, and Jenna had left her laptop open on the couch before heading out to clear her head. Something in me pushed me to check, not out of jealousy anymore, but out of survival. I opened her messages, and there it was, a conversation with him. Lines and lines of truth I wasn't ready for. One message hit me like a punch to the gut. "Don't worry. I'm done pretending with him. I just need him to cover rent one more time. After that, I'm done milking the situation." Milking. I read that word over and over until the letters blurred. My hands shook so violently I had to set the laptop down. I felt this stabbing heat behind my eyes, the kind you get right before a full emotional collapse. I whispered to myself, she used me." Saying it out loud made it real. Suddenly, every exhausted shift, every bill I paid, every sacrifice I made hit me at once. She wasn't overwhelmed. She wasn't struggling. She wasn't healing from anything. She was calculating. Cold. Strategic. Cruel in a way I didn't know she was capable of. I sank onto the floor, my back against the couch, and for the first time in years, I cried. Not the quiet kind. This was the ugly, broken kind that rips out of you because you don't know where else to put the pain. I felt stupid, humiliated, like my chest had cracked open and something had been ripped out. At one point I said to myself, how did I let this happen? How did I not see it? The room felt smaller, the air too tight, like I was suffocating on my own trust. I stared at the dark TV screen, seeing my reflection, puffy, defeated, hollow. That was the lowest I had ever felt in my life. Rock bottom wasn't a moment. It was a realization. She never loved me. She loved what I could give her. And something inside me hardened in a way I didn't recognize yet. After hitting that kind of emotional bottom, something inside me stopped breaking and started rebuilding in a way Jenna never saw coming. I didn't yell. I didn't confront her. I didn't even let her know I'd seen the messages. Instead, I went quiet, calm, focused, and deliberate. It wasn't numbness. It was strategy. A kind of clarity that only comes after you've lost everything you thought you had. The first change I made was simple. I stopped paying her rent automatically. The day the payment was due, I let it sit. I wanted to see what she'd do. And right on cue, Jenna walked into the living room with this suddenly sweet voice I hadn't heard in months. "Hey babe," she said softly, sliding onto the couch beside me. "Do you have a minute?" I looked up, pretending to be confused. "Yeah? What's up?" Her smile tightened. The rent didn't go through. Maybe the bank glitched." I shrugged. "Yeah, maybe. I've been busy. I'll look at it later." Her eyes flickered, panic beneath the surface. She wasn't used to this version of me. Over the next few days, her behavior completely shifted. She started waking up earlier, making me coffee, asking about my day. Little acts of affection she had abandoned long ago suddenly came back like someone had flipped a switch. But none of it felt real. It felt like she was trying to pull me back into place, the place where she controlled everything. Meanwhile, I kept gathering everything, screenshots, receipts, photos, messages. I saved every proof of where my money went, every lie she told, every Uber she took to him. I made folders, backups, even printed some of it out. Not because I wanted revenge yet, but because I knew the moment was coming. And through it all, Jenna had no idea I was watching her with new eyes. Eyes that saw every manipulation clearly for the first time. She didn't know my silence wasn't surrender. It was preparation. The day I decided to walk away wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, eerily quiet. Jenna thought she had softened me again. She thought the coffee, the sudden affection, the fake sweetness had worked. But inside, I was already gone. I was just waiting for the moment she stepped out, and when she finally did, saying she was going shopping with a friend, I knew exactly where she was going and exactly what I needed to do. The second the door shut, I felt this strange calm settle over me. I grabbed my bag, my documents, my clothes, every trace of myself that existed in that apartment. I moved fast but steady, my hands surprisingly steady for someone who had been shattered just days earlier. As I packed, I whispered to myself, "She took enough from you. Not anymore." Next, I went straight to the leasing office. I told them I was removing my name from the lease effective immediately. The manager looked suspicious, asking, "Is everything okay?" I said, "Just moving out," and handed over my ID. No anger, no explanation, just a clean exit. My signature slid across the paper like a final cut in a frayed rope. Then I handled the shared accounts, utilities, Wi-Fi, streaming services. One by one, I transferred everything back to my name or canceled my part altogether. No warning, no heads up, just a quiet undoing of every tie she used to keep me in her orbit. When everything was settled, I left one thing behind, an email. Not a text she could manipulate, not a call she could cry through, just a cold, factual message listing every dollar she owed, attached with every proof I'd collected. At the end, I wrote one sentence. "This is the last time you will ever hear from me." Then I blocked her everywhere. Phone, socials, email filters ready to send her into silence. I walked out of that apartment building with nothing but my bag and the kind of peace that comes after surviving a storm you never saw coming. And Jenna had no idea her control over me had ended before she even realized it was slipping. Ghosting someone you lived with isn't simple, but the silence afterward is louder than any screaming match could ever be. I expected anger from Jenna, maybe confusion, maybe frantic calls. What I didn't expect was how quickly she unraveled. Within hours of me disappearing, she emailed me. 3 separate messages, all with different tones. One said, "Where are you? This isn't funny." The next said, "You can't just leave me like this." And the last, "You're ruining my life." I didn't respond to any of them. I watched each email come in like a distant observer, feeling nothing but a numb, settled clarity. She wasn't looking for me. She was looking for the stability I'd given her, the bills I covered, the safety net she'd built her double life upon. By day 2, the messages changed. "Can we please talk? I'm sorry if I made you feel unappreciated. At least help me finish the rent this month." There it was, the truth slipping through the cracks. She didn't miss me. She missed the money. Friends started reaching out too. Not her friends, mine. One of them texted me, "Bro, she's telling people you abandoned her." Another wrote, "Her new guy? They're fighting." Apparently, he thought she lived alone. I almost laughed. The house of cards she built with lies was collapsing exactly the way liars always fear it will. Meanwhile, Jenna kept trying new tactics. Guilt, anger, pity. At one point, she wrote, "If you ever cared about me at all, you'll help me just until I figure things out." I stared at that sentence for a long time, feeling a single realization settle in my chest. I had cared. I had cared enough to destroy myself for her. But she had never cared enough to stop taking. By day 3, she sent a final message. "You can't ignore me forever." But she was wrong. I already had. And yet, the fallout wasn't done. Not even close. Because the next person to contact me wasn't Jenna. It was him. I didn't expect to hear from anyone connected to Jenna ever again, especially not him. When I saw the email notification with a name I didn't recognize, I almost deleted it. But the subject line stopped me cold. "I think we need to talk about Jenna." My chest tightened. For a moment, I wondered if she dragged him into some new lie to get to me. But when I opened the message, the first sentence stunned me. "I just found out who you are, and I'm sorry." He introduced himself, short, blunt, almost embarrassed. He said he had no idea Jenna was living with someone. She'd told him I was an obsessed ex who refused to move on. A stalker, someone who kept showing up at her place uninvited. Reading that felt like being punched in a wound that hadn't healed. I muttered to myself, "Of course she did. Because lying wasn't just something she did. It was who she was. We exchanged a few messages. His tone wasn't defensive, it was defeated. He said, "I ended things with her the second I found out. She lied to both of us." Then he sent screenshots. Messages where Jenna painted him as her future and me as a problem. In one of them, she wrote, "I'm just using him until I get my own place. Don't worry." Seeing it written again, in her own words, made something twist sharply inside me. Not pain this time, confirmation. The kind that burns, but also sets you free. He added, "If you need anything for whatever you're doing next, I'll help." And for a moment, I just stared at the screen, feeling something I hadn't felt in months: validation. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't insecure. I wasn't imagining the imbalance. I had been targeted, used, played by someone who crafted lies like artwork. But the more I read, the more another feeling grew beneath the anger. A new kind of stillness. A sense that maybe, just maybe, she was finally out of places to hide. And for the first time, I started to see the shape of the ending she never expected. By the time I reached the end of his screenshots, something inside me had settled into a calm I didn't recognize. Not forgiveness. Not peace. Something colder. Cleaner. Like the quiet after a storm, when all that's left is clarity. She had lied to him. She had lied to me. And now, with both of us standing on the outside of her deception, she had nowhere else to twist the truth. I opened a new email, my final one to her. No emotions. No explanations. Just facts. I attached every screenshot, every Uber receipt, every transaction where she used my money to fund her nights with him. Then I added the list of everything she owed me: rent, utilities, groceries, the debts she swore she'd pay once she got back on her feet. At the very bottom, I wrote, "Consider this an official demand for repayment. Failure to comply will result in a small claims filing. You no longer have access to me in any capacity." I hit send. The response came fast. "Are you serious? Why are you doing this?" Then another. "You're being dramatic. You know I can't pay all that." And then the final plea. "Please, I need you. Just help me this once." Reading those words, I felt nothing. No guilt. No nostalgia. No ache for what I thought we had. Just the solid weight of truth. She didn't need me. She needed the version of me she could exploit. I forwarded the email chain to myself for record, blocked her completely, and closed my laptop. That was the last time I ever heard from her. In the weeks that followed, she did end up paying a large portion, likely terrified of the legal trail of evidence stacked against her. But the money wasn't the victory. The victory was walking away without giving her the closure she wanted, without giving her an emotional foothold to climb back in. My life slowly became my own again. The air felt different, lighter, like I could finally breathe without someone draining every inhale. And somewhere deep down, I realized the most powerful revenge isn't anger or confrontation. It's becoming untouchable to the person who tried to break you.